Welcome back to Torpedoes and Tarantulas, guys. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to click this video and watch. Hope you're having an awesome weekend. So tonight's video is just going to be kind of a hodgepodge. I've got some updates, and then we're going to do some feeding attempts. Let me emphasize the word attempts there, because we never know how that's going to go. So you guys get settled in, get a beverage, pop some popcorn, whatever, and I'm going to get set up, and let's get this video started. Alright, and so my first update is just kind of a look what I found in my house situation. I found this guy last night. I was getting ready to take a shower. Turned the shower on, saw some very swift movement across the bathroom floor, and it darted behind the trash can in there. So I immediately went and got a catch cup, and before I even moved the trash can, and came back and moved the trash can, tried to cup it. I missed. It took off on me. This guy's fast. And if you don't know, this is a wolf spider, and you can't really see it very well, but this is a mature male. He does have the bulbous pedipalps, so he is ready for breeding. He also looks quite thin, so he needs something to eat. Anyway, so I moved the trash can, tried to cup it, missed. He takes off out of the bathroom into the bedroom. Tried to cup him again, missed. He takes off out of the bedroom into the hallway. I eventually cupped him, and that's where we are now. I am not going to keep this one and try to raise it or anything like that, put it in an enclosure. I'm just going to I'm going to feed it and then maybe turn it loose so that he can find a lady, but that's the first update. And then, of course, the next update is on my female jumping spider. Over the last couple of days, as you can see, she has wrapped herself in a web cocoon, and it is my assumption that she's getting ready to drop us an egg sac, hopefully. She is completely enclosed in this thing. Now, she just started doing a little bit of webbing in the corner the other day, and I thought, oh, that's cool. And then I looked in on her yesterday, and it wasn't quite this thick up here, but she had this corner here webbed over, and then it was clear right here, so I could still see her in there. And then this morning, I actually observed her doing some webbing for just a brief moment. I had places to go, so I couldn't get the camera out and do any of that. But she has completely enclosed herself in here now, so we're hoping that she's about to drop an egg sac. Fingers crossed. Just a little brief update on the fruit fly culture. These guys are breeding like crazy. There's literally thousands of them in here. This was the starter culture, and then they sent me another cup to make a culture, and so I have that back there in my invert room right now. You can't see it really well on camera, but like I said, they are just all over the place. This one here, I actually dumped a lot of them out into the other culture and started that culture, and then I started feeding some of my black widow slings with these guys here, and so we were down to just a few numbers, and just in the last few days they have multiplied exponentially. Here in a little while, mentioning the black widow slings, I am going to show you how I feed black widow slings, these fruit flies. I learned this by trial and error, because when I first got this thing, the first thing I did like a dummy was just open the lid, and they just come flowing out of there, and so I lost a whole bunch of them right off the bat. But our numbers are back up, and I'll show you guys here in a little bit how to feed out fruit flies. Okay, and pretty much the last update you can see here, I have 3 new critter keepers. That is because I have 3 new invertebrates coming. They're already ordered, bought, and paid for. Unfortunately, here in my home state of Texas, we have been going through a bit of a triple-digit heat wave, so they will not ship out until the temperatures cool. But here we have some tree bark. This is just from my pecan trees out in the yard. I actually have a lot more chunks of this than just these 3 little pieces. I treated this stuff. I boiled it for like 20 minutes. And then, of course, with these enclosures here, I've got some large rocks, which I will be using with these inverts. These guys right here were only like 75 cents a piece at Walmart. And in one of these enclosures, it's going to require a bit of sand, so I bought some sand as well. looking forward to getting these guys and doing an unboxing. And when I do, I'm also going to do a big shout out to a few people on that unboxing. But like I said, we kind of have to wait for the heat wave to break for me to get these new critters. They will be coming from Pinchers and Pokies, and Eric from Pinchers and Pokies has been great. He's been communicating with me the whole time, so we're just kind of sitting and waiting and biding our time until the new inverts arrive, and then we will do an unboxing. So that was the last of the updates. Let's get on to the feedings. Okay guys, so the first thing that you want to do with fruit flies, because they are so active and they're so tiny and there's so many of them, you want to put them in the freezer, for like a couple of minutes. You don't want to leave them in there too long or you'll kill them. Put them next to the ice cream in the ice or whatever, Anyway, you put them in the freezer just for, like I said, a couple of minutes. It kind of sedates them or whatever. And then you'll take the container and just give it a good tap to knock them all down in the bottom. And then I'll get set up and then show you how I feed with these guys. Okay, so the way I feed them, it requires transferring the fruit flies a couple of times. What I will do is pull the lid off and then just kind of move it to the side just a little bit there. And then I just give it a tap. Sometimes it goes better than it does at other times. I'm not getting it. There we go. There's some fruit flies falling out. I've got 2 or 3 in there. That ought to be good enough for the one spider that I'm going to feed. Of course, they all have to be fed, but I'm not going to do that on camera because it takes too long. Anyway, you can see those 3 or 4 fruit flies down in there. So let me get my other container and then show you kind of how we feed them out. So then at this point, I just kind of knock them all down in the corner, and then I've got a little sling vial that I use. And I will knock them all down into the sling vial, and then that way I can just kind of dish them out. Just remember that these guys, like I said, they're quite active and they climb, so you want to keep giving them a tap. Just keep them down on the bottom of the enclosure. But instead of continuing to do that, let's just go ahead and feed this one Black Widow sling I have here. This is about one of the better sized ones that I had, so what I'll do is just take that vial and just kind of give it a tap and knock those fruit flies down in there, and then of course the spider does the rest whenever it's hungry. Got a few escapees. It's not a big deal if you do get some fruit flies that get loose. Just smash them. You got so many of them anyway that you can afford to lose a few. There's another one trying to get away, but it jumped back down the enclosure. So that's the end of that. On to the next feeding. Up next, we have my Brachypelma amore, who has been quite busy lately excavating basically the whole bottom of its enclosure. And I see now that a lot of this is kind of caved in, but it had almost the entire bottom of this enclosure excavated out, and the substrate is built up so much now that you can see that the plant that I put, the leaf that I put in there, is kind of getting buried with substrate. And again, as I mentioned in another update there, sorry about the shakiness, guys, just working with one hand here. It will get mouthful of substrate and bring it up, and then after a while it just gets kind of lazy and it doesn't get it all the way up, and then so the burrow gets blocked and I have to go in there and just kind of dig it out. But it has been quite active with the digging lately. I'm going to throw a roach in here and we'll see whether it'll eat or not. So now I'm just going to drop a roach in and see if my amore is hungry. And it may or may not be. I've been feeding it twice a week. As you can see by that booty, it is quite plump. It's usually not immediate with its takedowns, and a lot of times the roach will crawl down underneath inside the burrow there with it before it eventually does the takedown. I know in the last video that I did, that roach crawled around down in that burrow for quite a while without the tarantula doing anything. And of course, as soon as I paused the video, it took it down. So I think that's going to be the case here tonight. We're probably not going to see a takedown. We're going to try not to let this video run too long, so we're going to go on to the other feedings. Okay, so next up is my Harpactira pulchra piece. You see those beautiful blue legs down in there? Let's see if it wants to eat. This one here as well has been eating pretty good here lately and putting on some size. So we'll see what happens. While we're waiting, I just want to mention a few nice takedown. A few newer YouTubers out there you guys need to check out if you haven't already. Brittany's Arachnids is one of them. She is a fellow Texan and she's just getting started. She's got a couple of videos. Awesome stuff. You should go check her out. That was a really good takedown. Alright, so my H. pulchra piece has been fed. On to the next one. So next up is my Brachypelma auratum, and as you can tell, it has been kind of trashing its enclosure over the last couple of days. You can't really see it from this camera angle, but it's been kind of digging down into both corners there. It has destroyed the hide that I made for it, and it's kind of starting to uproot the plants. So, I don't know. I guess it's just trying to tell me that it's not happy in the enclosure that it's in. So let's go ahead and drop a cricket in and get it to eat. Or not. This guy's usually right on top of food. We'll wait for just a bit. Maybe steer the cricket in the right direction there, because we're trying not to take too long on this video. And it seems to be not interested in its food here. That's unusual. So we're going to go ahead and leave it alone and move on to the next one. And next up is the wolf spider. I'm just going to attempt to feed it, drop a roach in there, see if it takes it. If it acts like it's scared of it, then I think I'll just take it outside and turn it loose and let him find a lady. But here we go. Let's see if we can get a feeding. Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a very awesome takedown. And as you can see, his abdomen is quite small, so he is hungry. So, yeah, we'll give him a good fat meal. Fatten him up a little bit, look more presentable for the ladies as he struggles with the roach. And then maybe we'll turn him loose out into the wild, like I said, to find a lady friend. But since he did take down this roach, ooh, look at that juice coming out. Viewer discretion is advised. Haha. Since he did take down the roach, I will be keeping him for a couple of days, let him eat and digest that roach, and then I will probably turn him loose because, like I said, I don't plan on keeping him. But that was really awesome. That was a bitchin' takedown. Pardon my French. This video is running a little long. I've got one more feeding left to do, so let's move on to the next one. And last but not least, the star of the show here. This is my subadult GBB Auggie, who just ripped some legs off of that cricket. Let's go ahead and give him the rest of it. He's settling into his new enclosure quite nicely. There he goes. He has taken his prize and gone into his burrow. He's done quite a bit of amazing stuff with the webbing in his enclosure. I'm really pleased with it. It makes a really good display. I'm working on getting a turntable to put him on, or put this enclosure on. That way I can just kind of spin it freely while I'm videoing. That's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe. Take care. Have a great night, and God bless, guys.